I flew on an Airbus A340-600 to the United States, then over to Canada and back on a Boeing 747-400. Okay, this is going to be a long one, but bear with me, it's going to be worth it. With the approach of new aircrafts into the fleets of airlines worldwide, older and less efficient aircrafts are facing their end of service life with many carriers. Such aircraft are the Airbus A340-600 as well as the Boeing 747-400 that are currently still in Lufthansa's fleet. And that's also why I've decided to fly on both of them before they are no longer in service. We are starting our journey in Dresden and we will take the early morning flight to Frankfurt, where both of these aircrafts are based. The short hop over to Frankfurt is operated by 27-year-old Delta Alpha India Lima uniform, an Airbus A319, and our seat on this flight is 19D, as I didn't bother reserving a particular seat on this shuttle to Frankfurt. As expected, the service is limited to a small bottle of water and a piece of Lindt chocolate. Flight time today was 48 minutes and we made an on-time landing in Frankfurt, deboarded and took a bus to the terminal during a beautiful sunrise. Here's our trusty A319 again. At the time of this trip, Lufthansa still operates 9 A340-600s to long-haul destinations, with the current ones in the winter flight plan 2024 and 25 being Boston, Denver, Delhi, Hong Kong, JFK, Chicago, as well as Riyadh and Dammam as a triangle flight. The A340-600s in Lufthansa's fleet are configured in two layouts. Both offer 8 first-class seats, while they differ in the business premium economy and economy class layout. The A340-600 is one of the last remaining Lufthansa aircraft with their old first-class product, with the other ones being the Boeing 747-8 and the A380. With the introduction of Allegris though, the A350 as well as the Boeing 777X will get a first-class product again. But well, we ain't rich, so we will fly economy on today's trip to Chicago O'Hare. With an almost 3-hour layover in Frankfurt, I had plenty of time to go through passport control and to my gate in the Z area, where most of the transatlantic Lufthansa departures are located. Our aircraft for the transatlantic flight LH430 is Delta Alpha India Hotel India, an Airbus A340-600 that was delivered to Lufthansa in April of 2004. Our seat will be on the left side of the aircraft in 48 Alpha. Boarding was swift and we pushed back with just about 25 minutes of departure delay. Let's listen as those Rolls-Royce engines take us into the sky. Also look at the shadow that we are casting on the ground. Our route today took us out of Frankfurt on runway 07 center and then west over the United Kingdom, Ireland and straight over the Atlantic. We entered Canadian airspace over Newfoundland, flew over Quebec and Ontario before starting our descent over Michigan and crossing Lake Michigan before making an approach into Chicago O'Hare on runway 28 center. Lufthansa's economy class on the A340-600 is arranged in a 242 layout. The Zodiac Rave system provides in-flight entertainment on a 9-inch touchscreen display. Right after taking off, you get a small savory snack, as well as a first drink service where I chose a Coke and some ginger ale. The meal service followed afterwards and we got a nice couscous salad, a vegetarian curry with rice, a bread roll with butter and cheese as well with a small slice of cake as a dessert. After the meal, it was obviously time to explore our aircraft and its unique feature a bit more. The downstairs lavatory of the A34600. I would lie if I said that I didn't use this a couple of times during the flight, just for the novelty of going down the stairs into the cargo hold level. Back at my seat, I decided to explore the in-flight entertainment system a bit. There's a good selection of movies, of which I chose to watch Deadpool and Wolverine, and also a moving map application that is unfortunately not interactive. Prior to landing, Lufthansa serves a hot sandwich as a pre-arrival snack, as well as another drink service. And just like that, we touched down in Chicago. The boarding and immigration were rather quick compared to my last experience with entering the United States from Europe approximately 10 years ago, and I was on a metro into the city shortly after. A truly special experience coming from the public transport heaven that is Central Europe. In Chicago, I had planned 2 full days to explore the city and do some light plane spotting. What I found most fascinating in Chicago was definitely the rustic looking metro system. The infrastructure looks like it's going to collapse any moment, and the trains are old and loud, but somehow, these metal tubes snaking around the skyscrapers and appearing above the streets in between the houses was just fascinating to me. I went to Chicago Midway to catch some Southwest aircrafts there, but was surprised how many interesting airlines land there besides Southwest. Probably some of my favorites were Delta's 717, as well as Volaris and Frontier's A320 Neos. The next day I also took a trip to Chicago O'Hare, the international gateway to the Windy City, and was not disappointed. I met some fellow F-geeks and had a great time there. I just about missed the departure of Lufthansa's A340 that day because I had to get back to my accommodation to get some extra sleep for an early departure the following day. But here are some of my favorites from O'Hare. A United Express CRJ 550, a Nippon Cargo Boeing 747-8, a Retro United Boeing 737-900ER, and a Contour Aviation CRJ 200. Let's just say the US are really great if you want to catch some regional jets. The next morning, I got up super early to go to the airport, made my way through a sketchy downtown at this night hour and onto the metro line to O'Hare. I got my boarding pass and went through security, had a quick meeting and boarded my first flight of the day. A 27-year-old Boeing 757-200 registered as November 14120 as United Flight 2679 to New York. United's Boeing 757 is configured in a 2-2 diamond layout in business class and a 3-3 layout in economy. The aircraft spans 41 rows and offers seats for 176 passengers. My seat for this early morning flight was 34 Alpha on the left side of the aircraft, and I couldn't have enjoyed the old 757 more. The flight was incredible as United has already retrofitted their old aircrafts with modern cabins, and this one had a really up-to-date in-flight entertainment, something you don't get to see a lot on a domestic flight when you are usually traveling around Europe. Our route took us out of Chicago on runway 9 right, straight over Lake Michigan and further east before approaching New York, Newark from the south and landing on runway 4 right. The flight was very smooth, and about 30 minutes after departure the crew came around with some snacks, where I opted for a ginger ale as well as a stroopwafel, which is, by the way, the best in-flight snack you could ask for, and you can find me on that opinion. A nice little detail about the in-flight entertainment was that the in-flight map representation of our aircraft matched the actual Star Alliance livery of the plane that we were on. And after about 1.5 hours, we landed in New York, so here's our arrival. I did have a comfy layover of about 4 hours, which was extended because my onward flight was delayed due to an aircraft rotation. A 23-year-old CRJ 550 registered as November 504 Golf Juliet, coming in from Portland in Maine. This aircraft is operated by GoJet on behalf of United Airlines, and you just have to love how all the American airports use jet bridges for regional and turboprop aircrafts. Just fantastic. Look at this, it's ridiculous. United's CRJ 550 is configured in a 1-2 layout in business class and a 2-2 layout in economy. In between the two classes, there is a small storage compartment that assists the overhead bins. We departed from New York with about 1.5 hours of delay, and we were on our way to the Canadian capital of Ottawa on United Flight 4168. Departing to the south again and turning just in time to precisely overfly Manhattan, here's what I caught from my tiny window, still super cool. Our flight took us along the border of New York State and then over into Canada, making an approach into Ottawa from the southwest onto runway 07. Flying such a small regional jet was something super special for me as a European, where the smallest aircraft you can reasonably get on nowadays is probably some Embraer E170, but more often an Airbus A319 is the aircraft of choice. The CRJ 550 even had a small luggage compartment in between business and economy class. I was in seat 16D, just behind the wing, but already towards the rear end of the cabin. But don't be mistaken, the D seat is the window seat on this aircraft. United serves a small quinoa biscuit, as well as something to drink on the short flight, and after what felt like 2 minutes, we were making an approach into Ottawa. Honestly, my immigration into Canada wasn't as smooth because how do you explain that you are traveling just to fly on some soon-to-be retired aircrafts? But after mentioning that I work in aviation as well, the Border Patrol agent was very nice, and after passing through security again, I was in the departure area of Ottawa Airport. Initially, I would have had enough time for a short tram ride into the city, but with my delayed inbound flight, I didn't want to take any risk and rather stayed for a nice first cup of Tim Hortons hot chocolate and amazing views of a bunch of Canadian airlines, as well as the Air Canada -8 that would take me over to Toronto City. Air Canada's Bombardier -8 Q400 is in a full economy class 2-2 layout with space for 76 passengers. The aircraft taking me to YTZ was the 13-year-old Bombardier -8 Q400, registered as Charlie Golf Golf Oscar Foxtrot, and my seat was 13F for this final flight of the day.
My name is Brianne. I'm your service director on today's flight to Toronto City Centre. Your crew today is pleased to be of service in English and in French.
Our flight departed Ottawa from runway 07 and turned 180 degrees to fly west again towards Toronto. We flew a good portion of our flight above Lake Ontario, circled 180 degrees again, and made our arrival on runway 08 at Toronto City Billy Bishop Airport. Even though this flight covers only about half the distance, it took only 10 minutes less than the previous one due to being on a turboprop aircraft with a lower average speed compared to the CRJ 550 jet. Jazz Aviation, who operates this flight on behalf of Air Canada Express, served a refreshing drink as well as a small snack in the form of a Kit Kat on board. Here you can see the Toronto skyline underneath the engine mount as we make an approach into Toronto City.
Welcome to Toronto City Centre. The local time is 6:35. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened and carry-on items stowed until the captain has switched off the seatbelt sign.
Billy Bishop Airport is really special as it is located on an island on Lake Ontario just in front of Toronto. It acts as a secondary airport with only short-haul destinations as the airport generally prohibits jet aircrafts. To get off the island, you can either take a ferry or you can take the escalator and walk underneath the small portion of lake separating the airport from the city. And here we are. I have dearly missed Canada. It was such a comforting feeling on arrival. Everyone was out in the streets, jogging, walking their dog and just enjoying life. Canada is certainly one of the nicest countries in the world. Obviously, we have to take some videos of public transport again, and also we have to spot some planes landing at Billy Bishop Airport now that we are here. But I also did some more touristy things. I had booked a bus to go to Niagara Falls, and boy was that incredible. It's just so humbling watching this amount of water go over the edge continuously like it's nothing. It really puts things into perspective. Safe to say I had a great time, and also had my second encounter with food recommended by Eddie Burbeck, as I ate at the Rainforest Cafe. I also had a quick visit to the Margaritaville back in Chicago. However, Niagara Falls was probably the highlight of this trip besides, of course, the flights, which is why I was doing this whole thing. Okay, one more day in Canada. We are taking a trip to Toronto's main gateway, Toronto Pearson Airport. I was there the entire day spotting the kind of rare runway 24 left arrivals, but it was freezing. There were multiple times where I considered to just go home. I was wearing sneakers and one pair of socks and my feet were dying. Here's my weather app telling me that the 1 degree Celsius felt like minus 11 degrees Celsius due to the winds. Well, still worth it in my opinion. As a small reward for sticking out in the cold and to cap off my Canada trip, I had an authentic poutine with some Canada Dry and called it a day. With the remaining half day I had left before I had to leave for the airport, I decided to go up the CN Tower. To be honest, I do have a fear of heights and I was glad to be back on the ground afterwards, but you just can't beat this view. You could even make out some aircrafts taxiing and taking off at the city airport down below. I also got some gifts to bring home and then made my way to the airport, where a beautiful 26-year-old Boeing 747-400 was making its arrival to come and pick me up. Delta Alpha Bravo Victor Whiskey was operating this Lufthansa flight back home to Frankfurt, and what better way to get home than on the Queen of the Skies. Lufthansa's Boeing 747-400 does not offer a first-class product. However, both the main as well as the upper deck offer a business class with 67 seats over both decks, 32 seats in premium economy and 272 economy seats on the main deck. While the business class varies in layout, it offers a very outdated 2-3-2 layout on the main deck. On the upper deck, it offers a 2-2 layout. In premium economy, the 747-400 is configured in a 2-4-2 layout, and economy is stuffed with 10 seats in one row, sporting a 3-4-3 layout, which is being reduced to 2-4-2 as the cabin narrows towards the rear of the cabin. My seat on this second to last flight was 38K, putting me again right behind the wing. Lufthansa provides a pillow and a blanket, as well as a good amount of legroom for someone as small as me. Also, the in-flight entertainment is more modern than on the 747-8, as the -400 has been retrofitted since its initial delivery. Next to us on the apron was this Air Canada Boeing 777 in the Go Canada Go livery, bound for Munich that same evening. Soon enough, we were taxiing out to runway 05 at Pearson, and in the last flight of the day, we departed towards the north before turning right and heading out over the Atlantic. After departure, the crew served a small drink service before starting with the full meal service shortly after. As almost always with Lufthansa, I quite enjoy their food in economy, but bear in mind that I don't have the experience of some travel influencer and also the stomach of a peasant, so don't come at me with stuff like caviar. As an eastbound flight from North America to Europe, this was a night flight, and we soon dimmed our windows to get some rest. I slept through the breakfast service that apparently was some hot pastry, which was unfortunate. However, it was all made up for by the views. While still being above Ireland, the sun started to rise and we got some stunning scenery out of the window coming into Europe. Soon after, the crew came around with a final round of Lindt chocolate for all passengers and we started our approach into Frankfurt, coming in from the north and turning left to enter the approach pattern, landing on runway 25 left in Frankfurt. Somehow we got a remote position and had a bus deboarding, which probably was bad for all other passengers, but it was just incredible for me as I got to stand right outside of this majestic aircraft as I got into the bus. As a European citizen, the immigration was more than quick, and even with the nightmare that Frankfurt can sometimes be as a transfer hub, it was a pleasant experience. On this last flight of my trip, I boarded Delta Alpha Charlie November Whiskey, a 14-year-old CRJ 900 on Lufthansa CityLine back to Dresden. What a feeling coming from one of the biggest jets in the world to this small regional one. It's still one of my favorites though, and it got me safely back home to Dresden, where all of this had started just 8 days prior. I did spend quite some money on this trip, but in my eyes that was justified, as I didn't want to miss out on yet another milestone of aviation history. My flights on Lufthansa cost me 618 euros, or about 4 cents per kilometer, and the American legs of my trip were 250 euros or 12 cents per kilometer. Thank you for coming along and see you on my next trip report.